You may be wondering what these are. These are extension tubes. Notice anything? There's no actual glass inside of them. What they do is pretty cool, but instead of explaining, let me just show you. With a normal lens, like this one, there's tons of glass inside, and it does a completely different thing than those two. But together, they can do something pretty cool. But to show you, I need to show you what this lens alone looks like. So with a normal lens, it has a thing that is called a minimum focus distance, which is how close it can get to an object. I'm going to use this Lego figure right here as our object. I'm going to switch to this camera to better show you. So the minimum focus distance on a lens is how close it can get to the subject. I can't be this close because it won't focus that far, so I have to pull it all the way back here to get this subject in focus. Let me zoom in and make sure. A little bit more. But this isn't how zoomed in the actual photo is. This is just how zoomed in the screen is to make sure I'm in focus. So I think right about there is in focus. So I'm going to take that photo. It's going to look something like that. It's still a cool photo. It's just very far away. Now that is where these extension tubes come in. They go in between the lens and the camera itself and allow the camera to focus on things much, much closer. So right now, before, the minimum focus distance of the camera is about here, this far to the subject. But if I attach these extension tubes right now that they're on, the minimum focus distance of this lens is much, much, much closer. It's about this far away, which allows you to get a photo that looks something closer to this. Now this photo can get much more in focus than the other photo, but the focus plane is also much thinner, so you can only really get part of it in focus. So you have to try really hard to get it because it's so thin. Even just less than a millimeter of movement can cause it to not be in focus anymore. So I think that's pretty close to in focus. Let's take that photo right there and compare that to the last photo we took. And that's changing only the extension tubes, which I think is insane. One thing that's even more insane than that, though, is that I was able to get these 3 tubes for less than $40 on Amazon, which is a steal compared to most other pieces of camera gear. And to get that kind of difference in a photo for $40 is insane. It does have its drawbacks, though. The build quality on these is not very great. I mean, the movement in between is immense. Also, the contacts have some weird issues where they'll disconnect from the camera, but that only happens sometimes. And they let less light in, so you have to compensate and change your settings to allow it to brighten the scene, as opposed to just using a normal lens. This makes your image a little bit darker. So those are some of the drawbacks. Now let's see what else we can shoot. One thing I think would be very cool is this knife right here. This knife, a thing called Damascus, which I'm not going to go into that, but it's layered metal on the blade, and it could create very cool patterns, especially with the zooms that we are getting. I'm going to have to hold this one with my hand. It just won't stand up straight. And let's go to this camera and see what we see. So here we go in the camera screen. We can see just the sheer amount of detail in the blade. It's much better seeing it in person. The GoPro is kind of blowing it out a little bit. The difficult thing is focusing it because I'm holding the subject in my hand, and when it's less than a millimeter focus distance, it's very difficult to get the whole thing in focus. Looking at some of these shots, the amount of detail in them is insane. Like, I mean, considering the blade is that big, and this is what we're talking about here. Like, minute details, and it's showing that. It's just incredible for $40. Another thing that I think would be very cool to shoot would be text in a book. I wonder, because it's smooth from the human eye, but I wonder if we'll be able to see the actual texture of the print on the paper. So I'm shooting the book, and this is a perfect example of how razor thin that focus is. Because each of the sides of the book are not in focus, and that's just from the paper itself curving. So we're going to see if I can get the word "the" in focus and get a photo of that. So move it a little bit closer, and right there. And that may not look impressive now, but that is completely before cropping the photo. There is this much detail in that, which is completely insane. One more thing that I want to shoot is this sponge right here, because I think that it has a very cool texture. I want to focus on the texture before I show you the shot, so you can just see the insane difference that this can give. Zoom in to make it easier. I apologize, the GoPro keeps overexposing the background. I wonder what the end of the sponge looks like. Oh, that's really cool. For my last thing that I'm going to shoot today, I'm going to shoot a couple different shots in a couple different places of something that everyone knows how it feels, a baseball. I'm going to get some of the writing and the logo, and I'm also going to try to get some of the threads, and I want to see how it goes. I'm going to start with the letters. Slowly bring it into focus. Now that we're kind of there, zoom in to make sure we get that extra bit. Try my best to make sure 100% that it's in focus. I also want to get some of the stitching, but let's lower the camera down a bit. Let's turn it to make sure that it's in the light. Here we go. Turn it a bit more. Some of these are really cool. Let's see if I can get one of the end where it's curving. I mean, just look at the texture on the stitches. It's actually insane that we're able to recover that in this amount of zoom for just this price. I think that was a good, straight to the point, quick video. I think that these for $40 are hard to beat for extension tubes. They aren't good quality. They're not special, but for half to a third of the price of what you normally get, I think it's well worth buying, even if you don't use them all that often. If you guys want to see me try to shoot something else, let me know down in the comments. I'd be happy to try it if I own it. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.